Hello.
Hello, and welcome to the Spooky Chris podcast. I am the aforementioned Spooky Chris Ringler. You can find all my stuff at spookychris.com. I'm an author, an occasional filmmaker, a ne'er-do-well, and I am joined today by the lovely Paul Counelis.
Hi. That tracks. Yay!
Thank you. I appreciate it. I have all this stuff queued up on here, and I never get to use them, so I figured I'd give you a
have at it.
a sad.
I love it.
I got one more, so you just wait.
All right.
It's coming.
I'll be waiting for that.
Okay, so Paul, I've known you for at least 2 or 3 months now.
At least 2 or 3 months.
Since our torrid affair. And
in Brazil.
On the coasts of Brazil. But I figured...
No, it's been like 14 years or more.
I honestly forget.
It's somewhere like that. Yeah. It's been a minute.
Yeah. I mean, in the very least 2011, but probably before that. Maybe. I don't
think we met once before that. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Where I completely
Peep Show.
Embarrassed myself. And someone said, "Hey, that's Chris Ringler," and blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm going to go say hi to him. And then I came over and said...
You pose this as if it's as if I have some, like, sort of level of fame, like, that's so.
It was a friend of mine that was telling me, "Oh, there's a guy that's kind of like you. He does art stuff. He likes horror stuff. And they're talking about this horror convention. And you should talk to him." "Oh, there he is right there." And so I go over and say, like, the dumbest shit to you. And, yeah, that's how we met. We shook hands.
Oh, gosh.
You gave me, like, a pat on the head.
It's very much similar to another person we know named Tyler Zickafoos, who's very formal and very handshaky.
Yeah.
Like, hello, I'm going to shake your hand.
Yeah.
Very funny. But no, I figured it would be, we could, after all these years, have a conversation with you about kind of the things that you do. So you are an author. Mm-hmm. You're a filmmaker.
Yep.
You have a home haunt, which if folks don't know what a home haunt is basically if you consider people who have haunted houses and haunted attractions, this is one done in your garage
in my
yard.
Garage backyard, yeah.
You're in a band?
Yep. Lords of October. LordsofOctober.com. You and your family you're pretty active on the socials. Yep.
We are. And all that stuff.
We actually have a channel called Twisted Sisters and Brother. And that's it's getting out there a little bit.
That's fun.
Crazy. A couple things went legitimately viral.
That's cool. So, all right, weird. So we'll get into, we'll take these on one at a time.
Okay.
So when did you kind of decide that you wanted to write seriously?
When I was a kid, there was a thought there. I considered it from a pretty young age that this was something I might want to do when I got older. But I was so obsessed with sports, especially football at the time, so that took precedence. But in the back of my mind, there was always I think I want to write. It was always there as far as I remember, maybe 10, 11 years old, telling my dad, "I'm going to be a writer, I want to write scary stories." This is literally what I told him. So probably elementary school when I thought I would probably do it. And I had a story published in a local little, I guess, some kind of pamphlet the library did. They used stories from different kids around the city of Flint. And mine was one of them. It was about aliens.
That's awesome.
It started out being about a vampire, but it was too graphic. So they asked me to rewrite it, and I basically rewrote War of the Worlds or something. A thing you do when you're 11.
Well, no, yeah, that's just kind of
I was really proud of it, though. When you get it back and you see it and everything, I show my mom, look, they published me,
I was desperate to write a story called The Stand as a teenager, and it was like, it's not going to be his stand. It's about trees, a stand of trees. I never wrote it.
That's great, though.
That was just a silly.
That's great, though. That's hilarious.
I had my big idea for a long time was something about a killer doll, and I obsessed over that this was young teens,
right.
I don't know even if I wrote anything, but
the ideas that you get then that feel like they're just, I have to do this. And then you get a little bit separate from it and be like, I'm probably not going to do that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the first story. And it was funny because the vampire was actually slipped and fell and impaled himself on some wood. And they're like, no, we can't put that in the City of Flint educational pamphlet or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was the first time.
That's pretty fun, though.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
I think my mom probably still has it. She has everything.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's super fun. So when did you kind of just make the declaration internally, I'm going to start putting my things in front of people. I'm going to start putting books out.
It was a poem book, and I put it together. I was obsessed with putting this poem book together. And I remember I put it together, and my dad said he could bind them at work and bring copies home. And I'm like, what?
Are they with the wire or
no,
the plastic?
They were bound.
Oh, wow.
They were nice. They were really nice.
That's cool.
They were just colors. There was no, I'd have to put the title on myself or whatever, but they were typed out and bound. And
How old were you?
17 maybe.
That's pretty great.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was mind-blowing at the time. So I have these poem books and I'm giving them to people and they're like, you wrote a poem book?
Say, that's a lady killer, man.
Right? It did work that way, which I had not anticipated at all. But some of these stories were, these poems were love-based. And my dad was like, yeah, a lot of the women at work were like, these are very appealing. I'm like, what? So yeah, I didn't expect that, but it was like a nice, it got some attention at school and stuff from like, that's the kid that writes poems? Okay, sure. Yeah, that was it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you discover, because you and I are both, you've been published more legitimately than I have, but we both have done self-publishing. When did you kind of start going down that road?
It came from, remember there was a local paper, Uncommon Sense?
Oh, I remember it well.
Yeah. So I got a few things in there, and then I joined the staff, and I started interviewing people, and I interviewed the Ghoul. So the Ghoul was my first kind of professional interview, and I started thinking about it'd be cool if I could interview people like that and just put them together in a book, and then you'd know, you could have a whole book. But how would you do that? So then I found Lulu.com and just started putting my own books together. And
what year did your first book come out?
Oh gosh, the first book that was legitimately a book was 2011.
Okay, all right.
Before that, there was some stuff I had made it myself, completely DIY, and my dad was binding them, and that's what I did with the interviews. There's this little book of interviews.
I'm jealous about the binding.
It was pretty cool. I think I still have one. If I find it, I'll show it to you. It's pretty cool.
That's pretty great.
I won't let you read it though. 'Cause you can look at the binding. I don't know how many of the poems hold up.
That's fine.
It might make you think differently of me, even though our Brazil days,
I might fall in love.
Oh, I like it. Yeah.
It's dramatic.
That also works for I'm sorry the bridge is out.
I put it on there. I'm like, oh man, if I ever do when I do reading stuff, it's like that, it would be so corny. And then the vampire slipped and fell.
Yes, that's excellent.
But okay, that's cool. So what has your experience been as going around to doing shows and promoting your stuff and like really kind of doing that. Because you have quite a few books out. Like you're a prolific dude.
Yeah. Well, you know how it is, because when you just start,
once you pop, you can't stop.
You can't stop. And when you get them books back and, you know, they're what you wanted them to be, that's important. One of the best early experiences was the Horror Host book, which I did include my interview with the Ghoul.
Oh, neat.
The one I did years before. I put that one in there. But then I got to interview a bunch of different horror hosts. And, you know, a lot of those guys are local to their area. So they have beloved fan bases and things like that. But then there's also a lot of nationally known people. And I had a nice variation of all these different horror hosts. Probably, I think there's 18 in the book. And they were all so open to it, and they were all so cool. And I kind of got welcomed into the horror host community. I got invited to Halloween Jack's wedding.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Cool things like that. I'd walk into cons, and they'd recognize me, and I'm like part of their little, like, this is so great. And that was one of the first things. Oh, and the show that you and I did, actually, in
oh, yeah.
Cleveland, I think it was Monster Fest
Yeah.
Mania or something. A guy came in and he had the Horror Host book signed by almost all of the horror hosts.
That's awesome.
And he showed it to me. He's like, I wanted you to see this. I'm like, this is magnificent.
That's
I loved it so much. So, but yeah, that's like one of the experiences and the rewarding thing of doing all these shows with your material and getting well known and, you know, putting yourself out there. I love it.
Well, I mean, what a lot of people don't know, Paul's an interesting dude because of funny Paul story is one time you're like, oh gosh, you'll never believe this. And I was like, what? And you were playing a game online and then like, you'll never guess who I was playing with. Like, I don't know. And it was Dominique Swain. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And I was like, what? How did this happen? He's like, I don't know, man.
Weird shit always happens like that. It just does. Right now I'm playing Monopoly Go with William Butler. I knew you were going to like that, too. It just popped up the other day. I'm like, I have to tell Chris this.
Just wait until he lands on your hotels. He'd be like, you son of a...
But, yeah, a lot of stuff like that came from the Rue Morgue.
Yeah, that's what I was going to get to is like, it's like people don't know that you've written for Rue Morgue.
Yeah.
Magazine, horror, for anybody who wouldn't know, it's a horror magazine.
Yeah. I had a column, actually, online, and that was so fun. Super rewarding. It was called Monster Kid Corner. It was basically the origins of horror movies, you know, the ones that got you into horror. So through that, man, I met a lot of really cool genre people and, you know, kind of stayed friends with a lot of them. That's awesome. How I met Linnea Quigley and a couple of those people through interviewing with Rue Morgue and talking to the different writers of Rue Morgue. Some are my friends still.
That's cool.
And anytime I get to be affiliated with Rue Morgue, I'm super honored because this is just so good. It's like the literature of a horror magazine.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
No, for sure.
So that opened up a lot of doors, though. That opened up some doors even with the horror hosting stuff.
And you know, not to jump around, but like, what makes you like feel such a kinship with all these horror hosts? And again, like some of these things I just explained because I don't know. You and I know all this stuff, but yeah, like so regionally, folks would have like these channels would get like they would have access to blocks of movies,
right.
And you could pair a couple horror movies, and you would have someone like, well, it'd be great if we had someone to introduce them and kind of play it up, and it's you know. And so regionally, people like Detroit had Sir Graves Ghastly, and Cleveland had the Ghoul,
and he was Detroit too.
Okay, okay, so up into the
yeah.
And now Chicago has Svengoolie.
Yeah.
So there's still bunches of around
all over the country. Yeah. Like almost every state has a notable, beloved horror host that worked at the local station at some point, you know. And some of them got to be legendary through that. I know when I was a kid, I watched The Ghoul with my dad, and I was young. Like, there's pictures of me dressed up like the Ghoul, and I'm like 5. So that weirdness, you know, got into me. But it's also the live thing. because anything could go wrong, anything could happen on the Ghoul, right? It would be not even about the movie. I don't even remember what movies were on these shows half the time. I just remember the Ghoul was there and he was going to throw a bowling ball in a toilet or something like that. But there's something about the live aspect of it that always gets to me in that funky local television kind of way.
Yeah.
That Svengoolie is great. I love that it's still here, but it's not the same kind of.
Oh yeah, I mean? like the Ghoul, for those, again, like for it was, he was like, when he was like big and kind of came on the scene, as he was very counterculture. Yeah. Kind of like proto punk in that, like, he was a hippie, but like he was of a time when when he would do some stuff kind of this whatever, and that's what people loved, as it was, I mean, lots of explosions. And
beating up his little frog.
You can't do that anymore. You can't do that kind of stuff. They want
you would have to
stuff.
be like cable access or YouTube, which is where a lot of them go now.
But you can't like really. You could do the interstitial stuff, but you can't like. You can't show nothing. You can't really show nothing of dead or anything. You can't like. Yeah. So it's not this. It's
That was what interests me in making the book, because I'm like, how are there still horror hosts? They drew this line from years and years ago. I mean, like, this thing goes back 50s, and they drew this line, but they're still out there finding ways to horror host, basically do the thing that they do that they love.
Yeah, I know some of them will solicit like indie movies, like director stuff, and it's like, it's not the same, but like, they can still they get to present a movie, and these people get a platform to show their film, and
yeah, because there's only so many public domain movies you can show. And you're going to interrupt some public domain movie that nobody wanted to watch in the first place. Yeah. That's not going to do as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's, it's interesting that they have evolved and found ways to exist, but
it's really interesting. I thought in a time where there's video games and a million stream channels, and there's still people that want to watch horror hosts. So to me, there was like a beauty in that. And that was something that actually fascinated me. I tried to get Elvira. I tried to get all the.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, when you think of like Elvira as like the superstar,
right,
that did that, that had shows and stuff, but like she was the exception, not the norm. Like like
she broke out,
and she kind of seems very self-aware of that and stuff, and knows. Yeah. She created a persona, and she knew exactly like how she dressed, how she acts, how like it's fascinating to see pictures of oh my gosh, her name
Vampira?
No, I'm trying to think of her, Cassandra Peterson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like just being Cassandra Peterson, and then versus Elvira.
It's not the
like
same person.
It's like they are not the same person. It is a character, and she knew like she's gonna wear a low cut thing, and like to hear her talk about it and stuff, and she talks about kind of how they created that whole thing, and like the beehive and everything, and it's interesting. So she was very aware, but
I contacted management for an interview, and they were very cordial, very nice. She was busy, but they did allow me to print a picture. So there's one picture of Elvira in the book, and talking peripherally about Elvira, But you can't leave Elvira out of horror history.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. So. That's how most people would know what a horror host, varying degrees would be, is that,
And the older people would know maybe Zachary. Yeah. But beyond that,
Yeah, and it is one regional. Of those. It's one of those things that that there are any that still are kind of clinging to it and that are surviving, and still doing it and getting into it. Stuff is miraculous in that it's one of those things. It is like it's like drive-ins. Yeah, that the world kind of moved on, and it's a shame that the world moved on, because we like where things kind of evolve, like we miss out on so many of these things, that the character of things, but
they have a horror host channel that they do, and they program different shows in there.
Because I would think like Roku would be perfect for that.
Yeah,
or something.
They have that. Yeah. And so that's pretty cool. That keeps it alive. And I know that people that want to find it can find it. Yeah. I mean, we've dabbled in it with my daughter. Try to do a little we actually made a book where she was the horror host of the book.
That's
you
fun.
know, that was pretty fun and cool. But you never know; we might try it again sometime.
No, that's. I mean, what's interesting? It makes me wonder. If some of them are using TikTok or like the new mediums to kind of do that now, because I mean,
yeah,
that's kind of where you'd have to, where you'd have to go to at least get people to kind of become aware.
TikTok is an interesting thing because I don't think I've seen any of them on TikTok, but that's a pretty cool idea.
Just because I
know they're on YouTube.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because
I mean, it's one of those things where. I mean, without getting it, I mean, like, attention spans on everybody are kind of scattered because of phones and stuff. But
right.
So you kind of got to go where the people are, and that's where they are. So
if you had
to get them to come to your other thing, you just kind of gotta
because bands do that.
Yeah,
bands have a little thing where it'd be like, oh, here's a clip of this band being crazy or whatever. Check this out on YouTube. Here's full video.
Yeah, here's 30 seconds of our song, and you're like, oh, that's,
yeah. And it works for Book Talk too, which I know you can't wait to get into.
Oh, I was hoping that the government would ban TikTok, so I'd be like, at least I don't have to try to get on that now. Like,
that's hilarious.
Face. Didn't work out that way, but whatever. How did you get into doing a home haunt?
The home haunt. All right, so this also goes back a little bit. It seems like all this stuff stems from when I was like 9 or whatever.
Who had parents were seems very encouraging to all of this kind of fun stuff, right?
Weirdly, though, we didn't celebrate Halloween.
Huh.
So we celebrated it for a few years, and then we didn't, and then I was grown. You know what I mean? So, but one of the younger years, I remember going outside and looking down the street, and all this was in the 80s, so everything was lit up. People were decorating, And I went to a house, and they had you wouldn't call it a home haunt, but it's like a statue of like a Sleepy Hollow guy, and you could see a light playing, and they had like some music going on the stereo, scary music, and that just stayed with me forever. I'm like, I loved it. It it was magical. It made the night feel more magical. And then my grandpa was almost like he was almost like having Peter Lorre. Like, he was so funny and cool, but he scared the crap out of kids on Halloween. So I'd go over there to his house and pass out candy when we didn't celebrate Halloween. I went to his house through my teenage years, and me and him would count, and my grandma, we would count the trick-or-treaters and eat pizza and watch Alfred Hitchcock Presents. And that's where I really fell in love with Halloween. And I thought, this one time he scared a kid, and the kid dropped his candy. We had to run out and hunt him down and everything. But I think that stayed in the back of my head. Then when my wife and I moved to a street in Flint, there was a house on the end corner that had what you would legitimately call a home haunt. And he had like a big meat shack made up, and I could see him building this haunt in his yard. Every day you'd see him adding more stuff. He's building it from the ground up. And it was intriguing and fascinating. And on Halloween night, everybody went there, So the one year, they had moved. And I thought, wow, that's pretty sad, because kids were coming around to that neighborhood looking for him. And I turned to my wife, I was like, why don't we do that? Why don't we be that house, It's Flint, and kids can't just pay $25 to go to a haunt all the time, Like, just make a free haunt. And it started out just being, me and some friends and a couple animatronics, and it wound up being this like huge, gigantic walkthrough with like 20 actors, and all one day a year every time.
Freddy versus Jason.
Yep, Freddy versus Jason in the backyard. We had Leatherface in the garage and a bunch of stuff. We'd build these tunnels.
I remember seeing video of I can't remember her name from The Ring.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was my daughter. She'd climb out of the TV. That people loved that. And they would throw stuff at her. People are throwing candy at her. They're screaming. Yeah. So it turned into a big family affair too, because like everybody wanted to come over and hang out and have fun on Halloween.
That's fun.
My dad, my mom, my mother-in-law, they've all done it on different occasions. And it's just turned into a passion. You know what I mean? Like every year around August, you start thinking about, oh, we got to build this tunnel for this home haunt. And we, you know, it's called Scarriage Town, which is a play on Carriage Town for those who don't know, Flint, you know.
Yeah, there's a neighborhood called Carriage Town.
Yeah. So we thought that'd be kind of funny and cool and make it something that people would talk about. And it's funny because I run into people that were at the haunt and they recognize me and they'll be like, when I was a kid, I used to go through this haunt, and I'm like, yep, that was us. Yeah. There was a lady at McDonald's just a couple months ago. She's like, I used to go to your haunt when I was a kid. I'm like, oh, you did? That's so cool.
That's fun.
So that was really the reason why, because I wanted to be able to help make Halloween night magical, like whoever those people were that did it to me when I was 8 or 9, you know, scared the crap out of me, and I loved it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So you also have a magazine you put out called Halloween Machine, because you are such a big Halloween person. Tell me about that.
Ridiculously into Halloween. Yeah, that was just real simple. I'm sitting there and it's like January and I'm like, why ain't there a Halloween magazine? And there wasn't one. There used to be a long time ago. There was another one. But there wasn't one that just focused on Halloween all year round. You'd have to wait for the seasonal thing to come out.
Yeah.
And I thought, I'm just going to make one because no one's doing that. And it seems like a fun thing that a few people would be interested in, you know? And it's become my labor of love.
How many years have you been doing it now?
Oh my gosh. The first one was 2012.
Okay,
so it's been...
This is the 14th year?
Yeah. It's there's a lot of issues now. I started out doing 5 a year, and now it's more back to 2, maybe 3. I do like a special issue in like a summer and an autumn. I like to still put one out in like April because that was the initial goal, was to have something when it wasn't Halloween for all the Halloween aficionados. But along the way, I got immersed into Halloween culture and just all this crazy stuff that you didn't even know existed, you know. So that is, like I said, that's a labor of love, though. I don't really make much money off that, if at all, sometimes. But I don't care. I'm still keep doing it, you know.
So you've been. It's interesting because you were, you know, been in many bands and been in bands with your family, and stuff. But you're still kind of active in a band, and it's funny again because it's.
Halloween.
Back to what's the theme?
It's a Halloween band, basically. I mean, but you know, we play all year round, and of course, it's a horror punk metal. Lords of October. My son's the guitar player, and you know, our buddy Lucifer is the bass player, and Matt on drums. Monster Matt, we call him. But it was the same thing. We decided this would be a really fun thing to do. What if we dressed up in Halloween costumes and went and played horror shows? And that's really where that idea came from. Well, we started out playing Kiss songs in Dave's house. And then we're like, you know what? This is starting to sound kind of good. Maybe we could write some songs and see where this takes us, you know? And it's taken us to a lot of really cool places.
Oh, yeah. I mean, your newest record has an intro from the one and only Dr. Satan.
That's right. Walter Phelan did our intro.
And has a guest performance.
Des Cadena on lead guitar on Proof, which is the first single. And then we also got Stephen Bissett, the Bigfoot guy. He does a part for us on a song. So it turned into something really cool along the way. And I get a lot of good feedback on that at cons. I get recognized sometimes, which is funny because I'm not wearing makeup. But I think people recognize the hair. I have the hair pulled up and shaved and all that. And I'm super tall. I'm 6'9".
You guys could cosplay as yourselves at it.
That's hilarious. Everybody be like, who the hell are you guys? We're Lords of October.
I've heard of them.
Yeah. That is what happens a lot of times.
They're famous enough that we cosplayed as them.
Right. Yeah.
Duh.
Well, we had a guy that was 6'9", and we thought it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. But it would, you know what we should honestly do?
Huh.
Is you should cosplay, but like everybody be like you be Zach.
Yeah. Yeah. Switch all the different characters around.
That'd be really funny.
That'd be great. That's my favorite thing playing at cons, because those audiences, you know, they get it. You know, like that's what it was built for, really.
Oh yeah.
You know, but having a big relatively decent sized fan base of people that actually like you.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And in a musical career, that hasn't always been the case, Sometimes you just struggle to get 5 people to come to your show, So Lords of October is a lot different than that in a good way.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think, what was the biggest show you guys have played? Because I think it's in my mind, but
Well, we've opened for Doyle a couple times now, and those were really good shows.
Didn't you guys, one of the Joe Bob's thing,
Yep, we played at Joe Bob's.
That's what I was thinking.
Joe Bob's Bash in
yeah.
Philly. We played the very first one. So that was really cool.
That's great.
Getting that call back was fun. And just hearing Joe Bob say your name on the radio, like, oh, we got Lords of October. You're like, oh, God, this is cool.
That's cool.
Actually, Linnea was there, too. Linnea Quigley was there.
That's fun.
Yeah. So I had makeup on, and I don't know if she recognized me. She said she did, but she let me take a picture with her, so whatever.
That's cool.
That was a big, cool show. There was a show in Jackson we played, too, outside. It was like a zombie walk in Jackson. That was really good. A lot of fun.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's super cool. So, and again, with everything else you do, you with some aficionados of horror as well, put on events, and you've done that for a while as well. What does that kind of fulfill everything? Because this is interesting, because this is kind of like a holistic approach of how many ways that you are involved because of your love for horror and stuff. What do you get out of putting events on?
Well, I got to go back a little bit, because I think you and I are quite a bit similar in this way. Being kids that were a little bit weird and maybe just a little bit misfit, and there's nothing like that around that you can relate to.
Yeah.
There's nothing in the city like that. And, I'm a monster kid through and through. I don't remember not loving monsters. You know what I mean? Got the famous monster magazines from my uncle, and watch Abbott Costello meet Frankenstein with my dad, and those are like the origins of wanting to be involved with events and cons, and hearing that you were putting on the Flint Horror Con. And I'm like, there's no way I'm not going to be involved in this. I have to be involved in this. And I contacted you, and,
And I banned you for life.
You were like, no, there's no way we're letting this dude in. So I started a competing horror con. No, but just being at that first horror con and seeing the joy that everyone got, and, mingling with people that are heroes, really. And like we talked earlier about how someone like an actor in a horror movie that wouldn't really budge the needle, let's say, in a different kind of movie, is like a hero to us.
Yeah.
And watching people interact with Tom Sullivan. My kid got to meet his hero at that con, and I had him writing a book, so I brought it to him and gave it to him, That was all very eye-opening as far as, that could actually be done in Flint. And, I left that day feeling like, I want to do this. This is what I want to do. I like going to the cons, but I really want to be part of it. I want to be part of the people that help put this on. And I was like, proud of you guys. You know what I mean? I'm proud to have been involved with the first one, but I was really proud that you guys put that together. You know what I mean? Like, I remember feeling that way. Like, I am proud they brought this to Flint, Michigan. You know what I mean? And I want to be part of it.
That's
and
awesome.
So that's what keeps it going to this day, really, is I know there's still people out there that would love to have something down the road that they can actually go to that's affordable, because we've always been a low-dose show.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just important to me, to keep that weirdness going in Flint.
Which you're kind of have been passing the torch to your kids now, because they have started to because you are a filmmaker as well, and you've always had your family and your friends involved, and
always.
And as your kids have gotten older, they've gotten more involved.
Yeah, and really good, like surprisingly good. Sometimes I'm like, how did you get so good? Some of the kids are better actors than me.
Like it's one of the great shames is you and I had been involved in a movie that'll never see the light of day, but that one of your daughters.
Two of them.
Well, oh yeah, but I was thinking because Audrey like basically is the star.
Yeah, she's the star. Yeah.
And it's a shame that it's kind of all for naught. But it was
the experience was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was neat that you guys got to work together on that.
Yeah, totally. And plus we have finished other movies together that we got to see play out at film festivals and sit in the crowd watching your kid and watching people get it, like, oh, she's really good. You know what I mean? Like, Audrey's really good at this. So I keep writing things for them to do. And Miley's getting really good at it. She actually won an award for one of our movies, our short films.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she won Best Child Actor.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was really cool. Just a little short film that we made at our house,
That's great.
And it totally spurned her on. She's going to be, she wants to be an actress of some sort or a wrestler. But she's in a play at school, The Outsiders, now.
That's awesome.
And those things give her confidence, But they're just they're like born performers. All of them are. You know what I mean? Like, they're made to do that.
That's so
Which is
fun.
kind of like how I always felt as a kid, now that I think about it.
Yeah, I admire that you kind of all have that kind of passion and love. All of your kids kind of have their own thing going on, but like the Venn diagram is you all meet kind of in this horror space, kind of where, in creative and kind of like Halloween-y outside, not even just horror, but like Halloween and creative space.
Yeah, there's like that magical side of horror that they all latched onto, which they latched onto organically, because the only one that isn't is my oldest daughter, and she still does stuff with us. You know what I mean? She's not like, she's kind of like, Dad, horror movies are scary, but she still does stuff with us. She's the one that crawled out of the TV.
Oh, right on. Okay.
Yeah. But the rest of them, everybody finds their kind of thing that they love and go with it, and we just encourage it, And then it's hard to not write movies for people that can make them, that live in your house. Right? Like,
well, yeah. I mean, I leaned on your family and your connections for my first movie that I made.
And that was so much fun to do too.
And it's like having gone through that, I understood when people talk about how hard it is. We shoot on the weekends and this, that, because it's the first day of shooting is the best time in the world.
Yeah.
And then the second day is it's the second-ish best day, and then the more it drags on, the less interested everyone is, because there's no money in it. It's just like you're doing it for fun.
Waiting around for your
there's more things in life that it's like you have other responsibilities and other things and other distractions, and it's like it's not, they're in it, they're doing it, but it's not theirs. So they're kind of just like, but if it's your family, they're kind of always there.
Yeah, and for the most part, you can keep them engaged.
Yeah.
We haven't done a lot of like taking the kids and doing different places where we'd have to have sets. But I've had them in music videos, and, that's really, really fun. It's really fun to direct kids in music videos, because you just say, do this, and they do it. They're not like, what's my motivation, And music videos are cool too, because you can just say the directions out loud.
Yeah.
Now turn to your left and, do this and do this. And so it's really rewarding. And then you look back, and there's videos that I made with my first band, and the kids are in it, and they were the adults. They were kids then, they're adults now. So that's always really cool. I know they look back on that as a magical time, so it's fun.
That's awesome.
I think it's rewarding for everybody.
Oh no, for sure. For as many families aren't close like that, gives you something to kind of come together on.
And they'll have ideas. They'll be like, "Hey, Dad, we should shoot this," and I'm like, "Let's do it."
Yeah,
we made like a snowball fight movie a couple weeks ago.
You were saying earlier that you're some of your kids have gotten into writing and wanting I guess they've been doing that for ages though, but like putting their own books together themselves, like inspired by what you're doing.
Yeah,
and that's pretty awesome.
We did a book where the girls reviewed classic horror movies, and it's published, and they got a little bit of local attention for it, and they got to go on TV and
that's cool.
Talk about the book and everything. It's so great, man. It's just so great. Just having them be that interested in it to where they're like, yeah, let's do that. kind of priceless, you know.
That's awesome. And so the last thing I'll hit is, you kind of have reached a point now where you're kind of paying it forward too in an endeavor that you and I have, where we have kind of it's been in stasis a while. It's been asleep, but Goblin Holler, our
imprint.
Yes, our little shingle for where we put one book out, an anthology of Bigfoot stories.
So good, I love it.
With a second one on the way, that'll be an anthology of ghost stories.
Ooh.
And that's been fun. And what, your experience kind of with that, like with now you get to not just be an author in the book, but you get to kind of choose writers to kind of contribute to it. Like that's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's really fun. That's another rewarding thing. Because for one thing, I'm always happy to be published with you. I love your work. I think you know that. And I think that we always mesh together well when we do things. And then just seeing other writers, like you said, friends that we admire that write. Curtis Prim, he's one of the people that's going to be in the anthology. He's been with me since like the second issue of Halloween Machine. He's contributed almost every issue. So to be able to say, hey, you want to do this cool project with us, and he's like, definitely. So that's also rewarding in its own way. And like you said, being able to kind of see someone that you admire and be in a project with them. I know that's like a really weird way to say it, but that's just how it feels. Like I'm proud to be in the same project with these people. I guess that's it. Right?
And I mean, I feel good that it's a paying gig for these folks. Like everybody's not a lot of money, but they're all getting paid for their stories. So
there's something to be said for that.
Oh yeah, no, I mean,
we know how that feels.
We should count up how many words it is, and if we're underpaying them.
Right. Well, we haven't had any complaints, so
that's something. But yeah, so and it's cool because with the first book we happened on, thanks to you, the cover artist, and like it just, and I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but the cover just has such a great look.
Right.
And then we of course had to, as long as he was willing, have him do the second book.
Oh my God, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah, and it has the same feel because that's his. And I can't.
Now see, I'm drawing a blank. He's a Mad Magazine artist. Yeah, David. I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Oh my gosh, but yeah,
which sucks because I love the guy. I'm gonna look it up real quick.
But yeah, like the incredible, like it's very fun. Like the Bigfoot one.
Yeah.
Is like they're both cartoony as it were, but not like ridiculous. Like they have their. And it's cool because that's why, as long as he's a game, we'll keep going back to him because it is
David DeGrand.
It's a consistent style, and you can tell, but they're different.
And so he elevates our theme to an even bigger spot. Whatever our theme is for each chosen book, but they have that uniform kind of feel to them because of his art.
Yep. So
it's so good.
I'm excited. I'm excited to get the second book out. So just because again, those covers will be pretty fun next to one another, like those books.
They're gonna look so good together. So that's Goblin Holler too. If anybody wants to go check us out on Facebook, and they should add us, or would like us, or whatever it is you do.
Click the ding-a-ling.
We won't spam you, but you'll see the covers.
Tap Bigfoot's ding-a-ling.
That won't happen. It's all good.
Flint's Bigfoot needs to do a plug for the book sometime.
Should have like him on the back corner, in the back of the
book. Y'all.
Like, yeah, hey, it's Flint's Bigfoot.
Hey, y'all, it's Flint's Bigfoot. Y'all better read this book. Ooh, he's got a bunch of words in it. I can't read them, but I think they talks about me.
Buy this book and read it to me.
Tuck me in and read it to me.
And then we're going to put my other book out sometime. Evil World Outside, which we already have a cover for.
No, we'll see.
Remember that?
Yes. Yeah.
Juliana Hudzik did the cover, and it's also brilliant. Maybe we can do that by Halloween.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. We just made a decision right there on podcast.
We talked about what the next DeGrand book will be.
Yeah.
So we'll have to, on the way, after this, we can talk more about it. But
Yes.
But all right, cool. Like, this has been wonderful, Paul.
Thank you.
How can people find you?
I mean, the best place is probably Facebook.
Probably at your house.
Yeah, you come right to my house.
use my
Go
address.
through the home haunt.
Sorry, so Facebook.
We'll have you for dinner. Yeah, Facebook, and it's Paul Counelis, Counelis. You're gonna have that on in your blurb, right?
Am I? No. I could do that thing probably.
And you can look me up on Amazon. You can look up lordsofoctober.com. There's all kinds of avenues to find me. Yeah.
And Goblin Holler is our
Goblin Holler
little,
is the imprint.
Yeah.
Also on Facebook.
It has been a pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Great. I loved it. Thank you.
We'll talk more about everything off the air. And I, as always, am the Spooky Chris that was mentioned in the beginning, and it's my podcast. So you can follow my podcast, all my reviews, and all the other stuff at my website, spookychris.com. I will talk to you, I don't know, whenever.